My name is Denny. Heck, I have the unbelievable honor and privilege to serve as your Lieutenant Governor.
John Smith from Washington State Employees Credit Union, also WNBA. I could tell you more, but we'll stop there.
My name is Representative Jamila Taylor of the 30th District, just north of here in South King County.
My name is Deborah Blom, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of DEI at Washington Realtors, and I work for Windermere Northwest Living.
And my name is Mary Hull-Drury. I am part of the lobbyist team at Washington Realtors.
Thank you. So here's how it's going to work. We have a strict time limitation of 1 hour. Each of us is going to make a few opening remarks. I will ask them questions as a follow-up to that, and hopefully if they don't talk too long, we're going to leave some time for you all to ask questions. But we are on a strict timeline, so let's get started. Let me tell you how privileged I feel to be here to deal with this very important topic. The racial wealth gap is the housing gap. Just take a few seconds and think about the profound importance of that statement. The racial wealth gap is the housing gap. I believe deeply in this. I believe that the structure of the facts lead inevitably to that conclusion. So what are those facts? Well, first of all, there is a wealth gap. If we're talking about, for example, Black Americans, they have a fraction of the net worth that the average white family does. In fact, by one good analysis, it's about 10% of what the average white family has. Fact number one. Fact number two, less than half the percentage of Black families own their own home, as do white families. Latest data I've seen shows that over 30% for Black families, over 60% for white families. I'm using Black families, but in fact other racial groups could apply in this as well. It's the data which I have at hand. So there is a racial wealth gap. Home ownership is significantly less among Black families. Fact number three, home equity is the number one asset of the average middle-class family. Hear that? Home equity is the number one asset of the average middle-class family. You put these three facts together, you cannot escape the conclusion that the racial wealth gap is the housing gap. It is why Black families have less money, less net worth than white families. In fact, for King County, we actually have some recent data that really bears this out. An outstanding economic consultant firm called Echo Northwest, on contract with King County, documented this, and it was reported in the Seattle Times. In case you missed it, they estimate that the range of lost net worth for a Black family in King County is anywhere, this is a wide gap, but pretty significant, between $105,000 and $306,000 per family as a consequence of both racist covenants and redlining lending practices. As a consequence of that, the average Black family in King County has a net worth at least $100,000 and some less than the average white family. This is, my friends, the very definition of systemic racism. Look it up in the dictionary, and there's a video of what I just spewed out at you over the last 3 minutes. Finally, I just want to say one thing, that the housing shortage in general is the ultimate issue of intersectionality. Why do I say that? Well, I just set forth the data associated with the racial wealth gap being the housing gap, but it is also why we have the number of homeless that we do and growing, because of the lack of access to affordable housing. We all know that there are other issues involved, be it unemployment or mental health issues or substance abuse, but the State Department of Commerce has done deep dive on this. The number one issue why we have homeless folks, people living under bridges, in tents, or couch surfing, is because there isn't enough affordable housing. Another intersectional issue, lack of retirement security. Whoa, where'd you get that, Denny? Well, we all know that because home prices are going up, that young people are deferring their purchase of homes. And the longer you wait, because of compound interest, the less you have at the end of your working journey. And remembering that the average family's largest net worth asset is home equity, that makes them less retirement secure. It lowers standard of living, absence of housing supply in general, especially affordable housing. Why is that? Well, because God hasn't repealed the law of supply and demand, and when you have less supply than you have demand, inevitably prices go up. People don't buy homes. If they don't buy homes, they stay renting. If they stay renting, occupancies go up. If occupancies go up, rents go up. If rents go up, people become more cost burdened. In fact, we have a high percentage of cost burdened people. They begin making standard of living trade-offs between prescription drugs and food and all manner of things and paying the rent. It's not environmentally benign to not have enough housing. In fact, it's environmentally harmful. If you're a beginning teacher in Seattle School District, you don't buy a home in Seattle. In fact, even after working several years, you're likely going to have to buy a home farther and farther away from the place you work. What does that mean? Longer commutes, more tailpipe pollution, more runoff, impermeable surfaces into our creeks and streams. The lack of housing lies at the intersection of all manner of social problems. It especially harms low-income people, and we have a long history of it being a weapon against people of color. So, with that introduction, did I cover the waterfront? You know, one of the reasons I'm excited to be here today, and I want to be blunt about this, we have the realtors and the bankers here. They were part of the problem, historically. They're a big part of the problem. And today, they're valiantly attempting to be a big part of the solution. And it's going to be fun to hear about that journey. But first, let's deal with the issue of the racial wealth gap is the housing gap. There is absolutely nobody better in the world to do this than Representative Jamila Taylor, who was the prime sponsor of House Bill 1474, the Covenant Credit Program. In case you do not know, it is the only bill of its kind in the history of the United States of America. The only bill of its kind. And those of you who have been with me before are tired of hearing me make this historical reference, but I cannot help but refer to the time that President Obama was about to sign the Affordable Care Act, and they caught Vice President Biden on mic, but he wasn't supposed to be, turning to him and saying, "This is a big deal." The Covenant Credits Program is exactly that. It is historic, very historic. And the woman who wrote it, the woman who prime sponsored it, is with us today. Give her a bigger hand than you just did, Representative Taylor.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate that introduction. I will have to give a lot of credit, most of the credit, to my co-sponsor, Representative Chop, the longest-serving Speaker of the House in the nation, and especially he gave us a new stat yesterday about how he's the only one who hasn't been indicted. So let's keep you in office and keep that standard up in Washington State. The high standards and the mentorship, not only Rep. Chop and you have given me throughout this process. I was prepared for this to be a multi-year effort. I was prepared for the racist attacks as we were going along. And let's be clear, Washington State is not immune to racism. Washington State is not immune to ignoring its participation in the historical harms of many, many, many communities. And Washington State is also bold in wanting to take action to undo those harms. Let's also acknowledge that. this effort was a multicultural, multi-year effort in terms of getting the research, getting the data to determine what was our participation. And I say our in terms of the big picture of the state legislature, and I'm a member of that body now, but what was our participation in essentially Jim Crow laws and segregation in the United States. We were in the Northwest. We didn't have slavery. We didn't have those kinds of challenges. And so we did have challenges around folks. I don't want you living in my community. We had these racially restrictive covenants, and every single covenant that was found, more than 50,000 of them in nearly every single county, and probably is in every county. We have not even finished the research. We've gotten through the 5 most populous counties, but it's likely that it's in nearly every single county that there were racially restrictive covenants, and all of them prohibited black people, some of them prohibited Asian folks, Latinos, Native Americans, Jewish folks, and others. And so it was really critical that we use a lens of how do we repair the specific harm from that exclusionary practice. And we created a bill that addressed that. Racially restrictive covenants became unenforceable in 1968, yet there were many people who were able to purchase homes, but they were in smaller communities. They were in enclaves, if you will, or segregated communities. And my father literally wrote the history of the Seattle forging of the black community, talking about these communities that once were Jewish, primarily Jewish, and became primarily black, and then now have gentrified out in many ways that you've seen every single day. With this bill, what we want to do is, well, actually, let me correct myself. With this act, because this is law. This is law. What we want to do is repair that harm by providing down payment assistance to those who were subjected to these racially restrictive covenants and their descendants. So when you think about that, you're thinking about home ownership where you're building equity. You know what you do with that equity? You use that equity to purchase another home, help your children purchase homes, to start businesses. It's an economic driver that helps folks build more than just getting by. Because as a person who's been a renter, had to move 7 times in 6 years in King County, rent is too damn high. It is too high. And I, as a person who has a law degree, who technically was on the pathway to be able to purchase a home, had high student debt. I wasn't able to buy a home that I thought I could have in Seattle with all of the social capital that comes with being a lawyer. But imagine other families who are desperately trying to get into the housing market in that way. This is a program that will address those harms, and we will couple it with other down payment assistance programs. So it's like you can build on top of that, because when you have to pay $800,000 in Seattle for a home, $10,000 is not going to do it. So we're going to have a program, have an oversight, have a way to determine how someone has connection to the historical harms. And this is for Washingtonian residents who have been subjected to so many harms that this state has enacted. And it's just the beginning. And we know that there are folks who are going to come to attack this bill. So we were preparing for those legal fights. We know that other states are also watching how we implement this bill, because sometimes when we implement bills that are focused on supporting most marginalized communities, everyone else benefits, and the marginalized folks continue to fall further and further behind. And so this multi-generational effort, this multicultural effort, is a long time in the making through hundreds of people, with more than 2,000 people signed in and supported the bill. We had the Seattle Times, and I have to say the energy, and I'll stop here, but the fact that we had the Washington Realtors get on board early and testify over and over on this bill is monumental and unusual for states. This, again, when I'm talking about folks who've historically not been in favor of programs and services that have fees attached to it, have been a participant in the harms, folks usually run away from the solutions that are being proposed. But Washington Realtors are stepping up and stepping out and taking accountability. And we will walk with you in that accountability as we implement. And we will walk with you with your realtor members who are like struggling to figure out how to make sure their clients know how to access this program, that they are building out more opportunities for folks to get into home ownership. And I appreciate the support we've received from you all.
So Representative Taylor is hiding her light under a bush a little bit. Her father, Quintard Taylor, is one of the foremost black historians in the entire United States of America. I invite you to go to blackhistory.org, blackpast.org. Thank you very much. Also, I want to refer you all to this outstanding report, which coincidentally is entitled "The Racial Wealth Gap is the Housing Gap," which our office put out a couple of years ago. It was authored by a brilliant young woman named Alina Lagani, and it is available at our website, at the Lieutenant Governor's website, and sets forth all the data in deep form as to why it is the racial wealth gap is the housing gap. She, by the way, graduated that year as the equivalent of valedictorian of the School of Economics at Columbia. She's now a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford. Deb Blom, moving on to you with the Realtors. What are you doing? How are you making things better?
Well, we have really shifted our focus as realtors, and it's happening at our local level, it's happening at our state level, and it's happening at the national level. Statewide, we have over 13 diversity and equity inclusion committees at the local associations, and we're adding more all the time. We have a state committee that I have the privilege of chairing, and over the last few years since we formed this committee, we have worked with authors and professors, experts in the areas of race, culture, and impact, so that we can educate our members and get them to understand exactly what the Lieutenant Governor was describing of these horrible impacts. I can remember in particular, unfortunately it was over Zoom because of COVID, but we had this amazing professor that was presenting to us, and the analogy that he gave us was that it's like starting Monopoly several turns behind, and how frustrating that would be to try to catch up and win at Monopoly, which Monopoly is a frustrating game as it is. Started a few turns back and man, you're out of luck. So we have people coming to speak to our membership and educate them. In order to serve on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and in order to be considered for leadership candidate positions, both at the state level and the national level, we have to complete training from NAR. They have bias override, Fair Haven, and I knew I was going to forget one of them, At Home with Diversity. And so those are additional trainings that our realtors can take from the National Association, and it is required for leadership at the state and national level.
So Deb, what Rep. Taylor alluded to was the fact that the Covenants bill is funded by a $100 increase in the document recording fee. In the past, the realtors have not just been a no on that, they've been a hell no. They've been the leading force opposing a penny increase in the document recording fee. Yet they supported the Covenants bill this time. They're engaged in all these efforts. What happened? Why the change?
Do you want to kick that to me?
Well, evidently, Deb, that question is being taken from you by Mary. So, launch forth, Mary.
Well, and so I'm coming at it from an advocacy standpoint because I am a lobbyist on the Washington Realtor team. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here. When I first started at Washington Realtors, I was the education director. And as part of that role, I was really interested in how best to form classes and courses that resonated with the adult learner. And so I found, doing a little bit of Googling, a theory that, just imagine for a moment, if you could, this pyramid. And in the pyramid, there's all these different layers. And the theory is that each of these layers need to be mastered in order to advance on to the next one. So it starts out with like rote memorization, and once you get that down, you can move on to the next layer. Once you get that down, you move on to the next layer until you get to the apex. And at the apex, what you have is evaluation. And so that's where you take all the information that you've learned, you assess, you can apply it to varying scenarios with different facts and figures and so on and so forth to make these decisions. And so I like to apply that not only just to individuals, but also to organizations, because really organizations are groups of people that take information and they're all working towards the same goal. So kind of taking it back to the original question here, our organization, much like a number of others, take inventory and stock of the decisions they've made and the positions they've had. And specific to DEI, we've done that. We've looked at what we've said in the past. We've talked about document recording fees. And what's interesting is that going through those exercises, whether it's intentional or not, gives you pause and sometimes creates opportunities to change positions. So fast forwarding to 1474 and Rep. Taylor's bill, setting aside the basis and the reason for that piece of legislation, addressing the document recording fee was one that we historically did oppose. And we opposed policies that had a $3 increase, a $5 increase, a $10 increase. So when you take that history and then you couple it with what 1474 proposes, which is a $100 increase, that's a big increase. That's a sizable step and one that usually gives organizations great pause and takes a lot longer for them to deliberate on, or not, depending on how they feel. In this case, because we've had those hard conversations, and because we've taken that assessment and a hard, uncomfortable look at times, it became a no-brainer for us. The priority was the tenets of 1474 and what it does, creating that fund for people who were denied home ownership, far outweighed any opposition that we ever had on the document recording fee. And it's one that, I mean, I know that we've been doing the thank yous back and forth, but thank you. It was a big moment for us. And I remember, even though I wasn't on the government affairs staff at the time for all those other previous bill proposals that proposed to increase the document recording fee, it didn't take long for me to know that this was a big deal. And it was a worthy deal. And it's one that we're incredibly happy to be in support of.
So Mary, it may just be me, but I'm not sure I heard an answer to my question about what's different now than 3 to 5 years ago. The same set of facts were there. Why have the realtors changed so much?
So building on that a little bit, we do have additional education opportunities like the one that I mentioned through NAR. And how do we get buy-in from our members? We are offering those courses at no cost to our members at least once a year so that people have access to getting more information. And our membership is interested in it. We also, for the folks that are resistant to the change, we do have mandatory fair housing training for our realtors now. And so that was a change. It was a bill that came up in 2021 and it just took effect this year. So now realtors every 2 years at their license renewal have to do 3 hours of fair housing training. And that is a 1/10 of the training that we do every 2 years. So that's a pretty substantial chunk that we've committed to. We will be doing fair housing education. And so for the first round of realtors, like for people like me or my husband who had been licensed for a while, when we go to do our renewal, we'll have 6 hours instead of 3 because we didn't have that initial 3. But so we are making sure that we're training our members and it's a part of the conversation. At our last couple of in-person meetings, our DEI sessions have been standing room only, like overflowing into the hallway. This is an important issue to our members.
So what I hear you saying is mandatory training and education has its cumulative effects. Neither of you said something, however, that I've suspected. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your membership is changing. I would like you all to know that my wife's phone that was not working earlier in the day is now working. And she knows that I'm glad things are fine, honey.
I'm glad things are fine too. But you're absolutely right.
Membership is
Yes,
changing.
our membership is changing. In 2012, we started kind of well, we switched our CMA programs, and so now we have much more robust data on kind of the nature of our membership and some demographic information. And we have found that new members coming in, you know, if you were to separate out our membership from kind of the first stage of their career, middle stage of their career, and the latter stage, I don't know how to phrase it, but the latter stage of their career, that there has been a demographic shift in kind of the ethnicity and of our newer members coming in. So you're absolutely right on that.
And just to jump in, the mandatory training just took effect this year. So we still have people who have not. So it's not that it's been because we've been forcing it down people's throats. This is an issue that we want to be leading. We understand that we have been a part of the problem, and we want to fix that. And that's not who we are anymore. We are a part of the change.
The Realtors' full-throated support of the Covenants Bill is Exhibit A. Good on you. John?
I get to say something?
Show me the money.
So,
Exactly.
John,
Yes.
more or less the same question that I asked Deb, your mortgage banker, in fact, you're the president. You guys have been part of the problem. What are you doing?
We're doing lots of good things. One of them, I would say, is most recently, we've partnered with people like Lisa DeBrock at Washington State Housing Finance Commission. You know, we are regulated in the state of Washington by Department of Financial Institutions. I see a hand back there, DFI. Okay, so there, I'm going to say some good things, but we'll leave the phone. But exactly. So you can fact check me here. But we're regulated in the state of Washington. And one of the things that we have really looked at doing is trying to figure out how do we expand our underwriting guidelines? How do we reach more people? And I guess let me pause for a minute too. Everybody in the audience, you're out here today. I don't know who you are, but I want you to go away with something. When you get up from your chair, I want you to just know that there's somebody here to help. That's the key. So if you need to reach somebody, you know, you can call Lisa DeBrock, Washington State Housing Finance Commission. She can help you. If she can't get you where you need to go, I mean, John Smith is my name. jsmith3@wsecu.org. I can help. But getting back to DFI and special purpose credit programs. So how do we go about reaching the black community? And somebody up here said, you know, no, I'll say it myself. You can't help everybody. So instead of trying to help everybody and being ineffective, let's help somebody. And the somebody that I'm focused on is the black community. If that's where the challenge is, let's focus on that. So what do? You go to regulators like DFI. You go to regulators like the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You figure out, what can I do differently? So what are we doing? We're trying to create programs that expand our ability to say yes to more people. And we do that through a couple of things. At the WMBA, our big deal is advocacy. We want to be able to advocate on behalf of lenders. We want to give them the tools they need to be successful in the world, whether it's from a regulatory standpoint, a legislative, whatever it might be. At the national MBA, we partner with them to really make good change in the world. Beyond that, it's education. We have counselors who people can meet with. Where I work, we have a great counselor who's certified. She's actually here, Tina. You could call Tina. She will sit with people and help them through the journey to prepare and then go forward with homeownership.
Do you have her cell number?
So the bottom line, though, is after all, I do have some phone numbers I can give you, but I'm not trying to get too crazy. This is not a commercial. This is not a commercial. But what it is an opportunity to look everybody here in the face, look you in the eyeballs and say, hey, we have been maybe the problem, but I'm here today. So when you need support, make sure you reach out and let's see. There we go. Checking the mic. What's up, y'all? But after all of the conversation is over, after the laws are passed, After the money is set aside to fund the programs, they come and sit at my desk, at a loan officer's desk, and we're the ones who help them walk through the process. This $100 fee you're talking about, it shows up on a document that I review with them. So we're all in this together. We partner with title companies, with PMI, private mortgage insurance companies. We partner with other kinds of organizations, and it's all for the benefit of that person that Representative Taylor's law is to help now, and others. So we're here to help. That's what we're doing, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, John. Rep. Taylor, I want to go back to something that you started to talk about, but I think bears amplification, and that is the path forward on the covenant bill. Could you talk some about what is underway? I will reveal my bias, which is we got to get this right.
Yeah.
We got to get it right. The eyes of the nation are on us. There can't be problems that become page one stories in The Stranger or the Seattle Times. We have to get this right. So talk about what we're doing to get it right. And as a part of that, if you would please, what these folks can do in that regard.
Yeah. So the next step we have a two-part. One part is to create our oversight committee that will be comprised of individuals from the industry, folks who have the lived experience of having been denied loan products. I mean, there are unfair practices that are going on out there that they're implemented. So, you know, the vestiges of what happened years and years ago, they still are rearing their ugly head right now. And so we're also doing a study on the racially restrictive covenants, how they were applied into communities, and the interaction with local laws and such. We want to make sure that we understand the landscape in a more dynamic way, not just simply, here's a racially restrictive covenant, you're eligible. And of course, we're going to have a lot of folks who are quite disappointed that they will literally not be eligible, even though they might be black. For example, me. I am not eligible for this program on the face of it. My family, my parents didn't move to Washington State until 1971. After the racially restrictive covenants became unenforceable. So we will not be able to benefit from this program. So there are going to be a lot of folks who are upset about how this program is implemented. But we also have other opportunities that we want to incorporate as we're dealing with the fallout of the 2008 mortgage crisis, with the predatory lending practices that happen there. We know there are families who want to split their lots because they were able to buy homes and have a lot of value, but were not able to fix their homes and do other things to increase the value, increase the important things that help them build equity and build income and pass that on to the next generation. And then my hope, and I'm just going to do a little advocacy with my partners here up at the dais, is that we have you all get involved in other conversations that impact people's ability to afford to purchase a home. You might have enough money to pay your rent, but you won't have the down payment that you need. Or if you do have challenges with affordability because your cost burdens, you know, imagine paying $1,500 a month for daycare. We need the realtors, we need the mortgage industry to be a part of those conversations. These are, you know, expenses that limit a person's ability to afford a home off top. And then there are folks who are like me, again, I have a law degree, but I also have hundreds of thousands in dollars in debt. So if I'm also paying $1,000 in debt on top of that, wanting to start a family, how am I, with that $2,500 a month burden, before we even get to the other standard costs, how am I going to afford even a small condo at $250,000? So these are things that we need, the realtors, the banking association, we need you all part of those other conversations that impact the ability of a person, a family, to get into home ownership.
So we're engaged in the construction of the study. We're engaged in the study. We're engaged in the construction of the oversight role. When we get beyond that, when we get beyond the specific and detailed architecture of how the program will work, do we not then also have the challenge of outreach. It seems to me that getting the word out to people that this new program is now up and running and available could be one of the more daunting tasks associated here. Am I wrong? Or if I'm not, what do you see as an effective way to deal with that, especially it relates to what these folks might be able to do?
I mean, I think we've already started with great outreach in the fact that the coalition is hundreds of organizations that are involved in some way or form, and that we had such a broad coalition of folks from multiple ethnicities, the Jewish folks, the Latino folks, the Black folks. We know that we need to reach out to the churches, the places where people gather, the social capital that goes along with that. If you are a realtor, you know where you need to go to find people, find clients. The question is, how will realtors also inform potential clients that might be eligible for this program? So the outreach, we need to put concerted effort into it as, potential legal challenges may come our way. And if for some reason this hostile, and yes, I'm saying hostile Supreme Court of the United States, anytime we are trying to repair the harms of the past, seems like they want to go the exact opposite way. If the Supreme Court of the United States strikes down this law, we still have the special purpose credit program where we can still do our outreach, we can still do our community engagement, and we can still reach the people who were historically impacted by the racially
Has a
restricted
lawsuit been
cuts.
filed?
Not yet, because we haven't distributed any money. So we're going to start collecting the fees in January, and then by July of '24, we'll be able to distribute the funds from that pocket of money, that account, into communities. So it's going to be incumbent of the community of realtors, the community of trusted messengers, and others, the banking industry, to share this information with their own dollars. You hear me?
Loud and clear.
With your own dollars, because that is the public-private partnership that we expect.
So do you expect a lawsuit to be filed?
Yes.
Mary, circling back to all the efforts that you and Deb talked about with respect to DEI in the profession, do you have a design for following your progress? How are you going to know if you're making progress? Are you going to measure it? If so, how?
That is an excellent question. And are you talking from an internal standpoint or an external one?
Internal. I don't think your mic's active, is it? Really? Seriously?
Oh,
Never mind.
so you guys can hear me then? Great. So from an internal standpoint, I'm looking at Deb because I don't know that we've set up any measurements.
No, but I think that we certainly could take a look at the percentage of our realtors who choose to participate in At Home with Diversity, Fair Haven, and Bias Override.
Right.
Obviously, people can't renew their license if they're not taking their fair housing training. I think one of the measures is that when we were enacting that we had to have that DEI training in order to run for leadership, there was not a peep in that board of directors meeting against it. There was not one person who stood up and said anything. We were ready, and there was not one person who stood up and said anything. So do I have a tangible, SMART goal with the metrics of the percentage? I don't, but that's something that we easily could create. And I think that we are seeing the anecdotal evidence that we've been kind of sharing that the tide is shifting.
So I have one more question of John before I ask if any of you have questions. Be thinking of them, if you will. Do we have a roving mic? No, okay, never mind. So be thinking of a question that you might have for one of these folks. John, this is a little bit tangential, but it's also something about which I've thought and worked on a lot, including when I was in Congress. And that is the broader issue of financial literacy and where mortgage borrowing plays into that. Can you talk some about what efforts, if any, the mortgage bankers support that help people give the tools to be able to navigate better? And I'm thinking of all the effort that the realtors have gone to to raise up awareness and consciousness of their members to help them be more effective. Is this a need, like I think it is, or am I wrong? And if it is a need, how might we address this? We may want to have the DFI person, because I think you're involved in some financial literacy efforts as well. But John, mortgage bankers.
It is definitely a true need, especially in the black population, the black community, education, learning how to go through the process. It's the same for...
It's the angle.
It must be. Checking the mic again. So for the black community, the Hispanic population, for millennials even, education is something that's important, and we have to figure out a way to do so. I think you touched on it, though, is that's reaching the populations that we're targeting. How do we get in touch with those people? Once we do, the lenders, though, are more focused on educating themselves. Where it goes into play of educating the consumer is at the individual lender place. So, for example, where I work, we do have on our website the ability to set an appointment to meet with the counselor. Through that process, they learn from start to finish the process of buying a home. So it's a big deal. And I think from an individual lender, we are either state licensed or federally registered as a lender. So we're all, if you're an originator, you go through some education for yourself. And that's the key for being able to launch education outward. And I'll finish on one final, and that's partnership again with Washington State Housing Finance Commission. They do a fantastic job of providing education to the consumer, that homeowner. And we hear from people who've gone through the process that, hey, I don't know what I was thinking of not having this. Some that missed it, they're just hurt by not going through that process. So there's a lot going on, but we need assistance reaching the target audience.
Rep. Taylor.
I would just want to add, when you have professionals going into communities that you have historically not been involved in, let's not go in with a sense of condescension around poor people or people who have limited means, because these are some of the most resourceful people in our community who know how to make $10 out of a dollar, who give back to the community over and over and over and over again, that may have been taking care of cousin, JJ's kids and the other kids and not had any state support or anything. Like, we know that they are experiencing a lot of challenges just having access to the capital, that decisions are made about how you use money, the worthiness. Like, there is so much racism embedded in the process. That's the other thing that's like we're really not talking about. So when we're talking about metrics that you are going to implement, it's like when you're talking about someone who presents on paper same income, but how they spend their money, they have happened to have cosign on a car for someone, cosign on a loan for a student in their household, and then they're suddenly unworthy, credit worthy, if you will, for a home because they delayed that purchase, but they had income. The burdens on a family when you have that first child, the second child, be able to have income, and then they're expected to help the rest of the family. When you hear in some of our Latino families and our immigrant families where they have income that they're sending back home, and back home could be around the corner. Back home could be in another country. So the decision-making points when you're sitting with a loan officer who doesn't understand, well, why were you unbanked for so long? You don't have the credit. You aren't, quote unquote, worthy of a loan of this. So we have to change the conversation and think about, what is your resourcefulness? How are you going to solve the problem when things get tough? How do we find you a product that is consistent, that you know when you're getting your financial literacy, you pay that mortgage first? Or if there is going to be a challenge, we have a program for you. Because if you're not given the information about the resources that help you in those tough times, and then you are blamed for not knowing that information, because that is what happens. People get blamed for not knowing that there's a program. I didn't know that there were programs out there that would have helped me get my first house back in 2008 after the recession.
We need another
And I was
hour.
sophisticated enough to know, and I would have been an ideal candidate for most mortgage products, but I didn't get that access. So I just wanted to remind our colleagues here, as you're going into communities, be careful about how you speak to people, because they will walk away from the table because you're still implementing the history of whether that person is worthy of this product, and then the community is blamed for not taking on the resource.
John, did you want to add something?
No, I was going to say we probably need another hour, but I concur with everything you just said. Not that you need that, but I certainly believe that. And I don't know, how much time do we have? I'm going to take 2 minutes.
Sure.
I come from that background. Mom, Mississippi. Jim Crow, she had to run away and escape. But we started in a real small place. I come from that background of a pastor's kid, so I'm a preacher's kid. Anyway, I won't go into that deep, but I know exactly what you're talking about. My mom's 21 brothers and sisters. We can talk on that. So I just want you to know that there is help from a real place of compassion and understanding the needs that our communities have. And I know the community best where I come from. So here we are today.
Your turn. Raise your hand if you have a question. Sure. Maybe you could stand up and say your name.
My name is Luis. I'm with the Office of Housing. Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So you mentioned that there's a lack of information for the client. I used to be a mortgage broker for 4 years, and you have no idea how many times I had to walk by clients off a ledge because they just couldn't buy a house. Like they didn't afford as much as they needed to, or they were just undercut by bigger people. Right. So anyway. The program that you guys are talking about, the easiest way to get it out is to make it a part of the continuing education for realtors and for mortgage brokers. If you make it a part of the continuing education, it's done. They know they need to do it. 1, 2, include a form. Just like you include the SSA 89 and the forms that we need to fill out to be able to complete a mortgage, include a form that says, I informed my client about this product. They do not qualify because of A, B, and C. Got it. And put it in the back. So that's one. And then the other thing, is there a way to, as far as the financial literacy, it's tough because when people need it is at around 18 to 20 years old. Yes. They're not thinking that way about credit. And just as a test, does anybody in the room know for sure, and it's a yes, I'm just saying, did anybody know before this, that you can build credit from 0 to over a 700 credit score in 6 months? Not a lot of people know that. They think that a 700 credit score is out there, and I'm at a 550. What am I supposed to do? I had a client that came in February. By September, he had a 735. I told him exactly what to do, and he bought it.
Good deal.
And please don't think it was me trying to toot my horn. It's more of how can I help, right? And I want to finish the conversation with you. Yes. That's what.
Thank you. There were a couple of other hands over here first. Here.
Hi, Heather Moss, Director of Human Services for Pierce County. Great panel, thank you. This is a great conversation. One of the things that I didn't hear the realtors or the lender talk about that I thought you would is representation in your industries, because I think that's something that we're seeing changing a little bit, needs to change more in terms of having more Black and minority lenders and realtors who can identify with the background that you just raised, right? And understanding and sort of recognizing the history and the historical context that is bringing a lot of the first-time home buyers to the table. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a small step, but real estate is a very difficult industry to break into because it's, you have a buyer or a seller right away, great. By the time you get an accepted contract, it's still going to be another 30 days before you get paid. So there's a lot of upfront costs. You have to pay for all of your licensing. You have to pay for your association dues. You have to pay for this. You have to pay for that. It's a very upfront, it's heavy on the upfront cost. So Washington Realtors does do a scholarship program for people that need it for member association dues. It doesn't remove all the barriers, but it's at least something for the people who've received it. And then what we are really trying to do is champion NAR's SPIRE program, which is a mentorship program. It is anybody that's 2 years or less in the industry is eligible, but we're specifically trying to choose people of historically non-dominant communities so that we can match them up with an experienced agent and get them additional training at no cost. And it's specifically designed with an emphasis on building wealth through home ownership. It's hard. It is. It absolutely is. We are seeing the demographic change a little bit, as Mary mentioned, but it's a very difficult industry to sustain. Most people have to have another job for a while they're trying to get started because it's a lot of upfront cost, and so it can be very challenging. And then one of the other things, to speak to your point of wanting to take a listening stance, we are really trying to partner with NAREB and NAREP and ARIA, which are our affiliate organizations for multicultural groups, and so really trying to let them take the lead so that we can listen, because you are 100% right that we need to come from a place of, we don't have your experience. We have very different lived experiences, and we should not have assumptions or judgments when we have those conversations.
John?
I agree 100%. It's difficult. And me personally, so you see my gray here, I, in 43 years of employment, have never, ever reported to a black man. They just are hard to find. It's a gauntlet to get through. It's a gauntlet to get to me to where I sit today. So I don't know, it's a systemic problem still that exists. And it's in the hiring practices. It starts in the writing of the job description. We've got to do better in everything we do. I can't even make an excuse. I've hired people, and I have trouble too finding somebody that looks like me. But, I'll stop because I'll keep going here. It's tough, it's difficult, but I feel you.
Mary? Thank you for that reminder.
Yes, thank you. So we have one, and I'm happy to get the others. The average credit score for black home buyers leads them to paying over $75,000 more in interest than the average white home buyer, which further widens the wealth gap. How do you address credit in the home buying process so that blacks are not paying more than whites when buying a home because of their credit score?
We have to delete credit score as part of the process. So there's a direct answer. We just got to stop using credit score and figure out another way to identify an eligible, qualified homeowner. And that's one of the things we're doing, not only at the local level, but Fannie Mae, or at the GSE, the Government Service Enterprise, which regulates Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They are also talking about, how do we remove credit score as part of the process?
Go on, Mary.
Okay. Where do appraisers land in the continuum of how to bridge the wealth gap created by the home ownership gap? Appraisals that are racially biased have been one of the points in the disparities report as a large factor in why BIPOC homeowners don't always qualify for a home.
I can take that, or I don't know
Please.
if you...
Go for it.
In that area, it's reported, but is not as significant as maybe is reported. I'll just put it that way, because we track that consistently. And the appraisal process is so stringent right now that appraisers are not the big problem overall. Sure, you've got that one, but it's not a huge problem in the big world.
Okay. Oh gosh. Who does the $100 document fee fall on, the buyer, realtor, or seller?
I think
It is.
The buyer is what she said.
Yes. What are your thoughts around working with by and for organizations to reach the target audience when it comes to financial literacy?
Mr. Taylor?
Pay them and they'll do the work.
In reference to equity in the audience, between devices that people are willing to speak this out, with an industry that's been so wrong for so long and systematically racist, how would you talk about DEI and training? We have a former Congress representative sitting here, federal agency, state agency. Where does reparations come into this conversation? Where do we get to a realistic approach to dealing with this issue? Because right now, the time when housing prices are so high, now there's this effort to create black homeownership initiatives. When after the housing bubble burst from 2008 to current day, within the last 2 years, was the best time to get homeowners in the mix, especially folks of color. So it seems like every time this comes up, at the worst times for black folks to buy houses. And then we have an effort that's still going to benefit the realtors for making sales, whether it's $100 fee or not, with DEI efforts that are performative, what's the reality to this? Like, where's the real effort to put land in the hands of black folks or Latinos or, diversified? I don't see a real effort. I see legislation that creates more problems and more hurdles than ever. When can we get real about it? We talk about reparations, we talk about history, we talk about systematic issues, but we never really address them. So where is that effort?
Anybody want to take that?
I think we are addressing it. That's what's happening right now. That's what happened with the bill that was passed into law. I mean, that is reparations.
So this is a question I get a lot. There are folks who say that want to redefine reparations as a cash payment, a transfer of land, something very direct for people. We have a system of laws in the United States that we have to follow. We have a Supreme Court that are hostile to anything that would promote equity in our communities. We just saw what happened with affirmative action. And so we designed this law not in the spirit of reparations directly, but as a runaround because we knew what was about to happen, and it did. So, yes, you are correct. This is not reparations in the sense of a cash payment or a land transfer. But this is not the only thing that needs to happen. We need to have more opportunities to create black-owned banks, how we need to make sure that people are getting trained in the industry who understand the context of, how mama and grandmama made $10 out of that $1. We need to make sure that we have folks who have access to time in their day to be able to, build their entrepreneurship. I come across a lot of folks who have their day job and then they have their side hustle. So are you steered into a side hustle that actually makes you money, that creates residual income? Or are you tracked into a side hustle that actually extracts more income from your family? I hear like multi-level marketing programs do that. Not to impugn some of these other programs, but when we're talking about economic justice, these are important questions that you have to continually ask and hold us accountable to. I'm in rooms that maybe you might not be in rooms, and I'm having uncomfortable conversations with folks who, quite frankly, uninvite me to the table on a regular basis. That's when I know I've hit the right question. That's when I know that the accountability needs to be brought to the surface. And you, by holding me accountable as your elected, saying, where is the real reparations, is the right question. I'm uncomfortable. I am very uncomfortable. But that means that I want to step into the work in partnership with other folks who are not comfortable with this conversation, but are ready to take action. And I'm not going to say they need to feel good. They will do the work. They have to.
Great note to end on. As I indicated at the outset, we have a hard stop at 4:45. We're there. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and caring about this very, very important issue. Most importantly, however, what I want you to do when I'm done is put your hands together for a spectacular panel. Representative Taylor, John Smith, President of the Mortgage Bankers Association, WSECU Credit Union, Deb Blom, Washington Association of Realtors, Chair of the DEI Committee, and Mary Hull-Drury, who is Head of Government Relations for the Washington Association of Realtors. They did a great job. Put your hands together for them.